From Parshat Shmot until the end of the Chumash, we are introduced to a certain object which we don't pay much attention to, which has an incredibly active role in everything that has to do with Bnei Yisrael and Moshe Rabbeinu. This is the mateh, the staff, the famous staff that Moshe Rabbeinu took in his hand and took everywhere he went. This was his pet staff that was there all the time, which we are introduced to in our parsha in Perek Dalet. We see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was very makpid, that Moshe Rabbeinu should always have the staff by him. What is the zgula? What is so miyuchad about this staff? So first we'll start with a few midrashim, and then we'll try to bring out an important musar which we learn from the staff, and that is that in Shmot Rabbah, in Parshat Beshalach, in the midrash it says, "Umate Elokim biyodi." What does it mean, Mate Elokim biyodi? Ukesharon asabo nisim. Nikra al Shmoy Shenemar Mate Aaron. Every time that it was whoever did the nest with the Mate, that's what it was called. So the same staff, according to the Midrash, it was the same staff that Aaron had, that Moshe had. This magical cape that was there, that was able to go ahead and do all these magic tricks that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did through it. It was called Mate Aaron when Aaron did it. And it's called Mate Moshe when Moshe used it. And then it says, "Ubizman she'Hakadosh Baruch Hu asaboy nisim," and when Hashem did the nisim, nikra el shmoy shenemar Mate Elokim, when it was done automatically, that we're going to explain later. B'ezrat Hashem, Mate Elokim means that when the nisim were done with it, meaning when no activity was actually done with that Mate, just the fact that it was there, not like the other makot, then automatically you end up having, it's called Mate Elokim. Also, we find in Shmot Rabbah, in Shmot Rabbah, that's our parsha, and in the Tanchum Parshas Tazria, it says the mateh of Moshe, the staff of Moshe, asaboyotet hayimishkol arbaim sa. It was very heavy. Arbaim sa is a volume, but it meant the volume of 40 sa of water, which is the size of a mikvah, what it's supposed to be, and therefore it's a good number of liters of water. And it was very heavy at the same time. It was also made from Evan Sapir, sapphire stone. From Sapirin, it's a machlokit in the Yalkut Yerushalmi. Some people know it was made of etz, but the majority of the poskim, of the mefarshim there, in the Midrash and the Yalkut, learned that it was made of sapphire stone from the Dmut of the Kisei HaKavod, Ad Kedei Kach, as that's what it's made out of. Also, written on the mateh, as is written in the Pirkei of Rav Elazar, and also in the Midrashim I mentioned to you before, written on it was chakuk, was engraved, the Datzach Adash Bachav, of course the Simonim that we know for Rabbi Yehuda that we say during the Haggadah, that's what is written on it. The Chasam Sofer says that's only according to Rabbi Yehuda. According to Chachamim, all 10 makot were actually written on the staff. You have to have a lot of room there. And he says that even so, Moshe Rabbeinu still didn't know which makkah was which because it was scrambled letters. All the letters were scrambled and they would unscramble at the time when it is. And it's even brought down, the Maral Diskin brings, based on the Midrash also, that whenever every makkah hits, the letters would glow up in the mateh, and that's the one that would come about. The Beis Elokim, the Mabit brings us down incredible things that were on it. And lastly, written on it, engraved inside of it, was the Shem HaMeforsh, the name, the 72-letter name, the tentagram of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name was written on top of it. And those are the tzirufei otiyot, those are the letters which were created. Shemayim v'aretz, as the Ritva writes in the Haggadah. There's a Ritva in the Haggadah, if anyone wants to see. And over there he actually writes this idea that the otiyot are written on the mateh, and they're the same otiyot which are what created the Shemayim v'aretz. So here we have this incredible species, this staff, which seems to have an incredible amount of Kebiyochel power, Shefel or Ki that comes within it. And the Pirkei of Rav Elazar adds an incredible thing. If you look in Perek Mem, over there, it's also in the Yalkut Shimon and Kufa and Gimel. And of course, we know some Pirkei Avot and Perkei, ever popular. 10 things were created in Bein Mashot during the time of Ma'aseh Breshit. And one of them, Amateh. The Mateh was created in Ma'aseh Breshit. So we see we're not talking about Stam Kutla Karne, as they say, something that just cuts down. This is something very important, created already. It's one of the 10 things that were created from Ma'aseh Breshit. And says the Pirkei of Rav Elazar over there in his Marich that you should know, okay, it was created in Ma'aseh Breshit. So where was it all this time until it got to Moshe Rabbeinu? We're talking about a good number of years, a couple of millennia, until it was able to finally get to Moshe Rabbeinu, how to go. So he says like this, Adam Arishon actually had this mateh. He was given the mateh, this magical mateh, this incredible thing. Adam Rishon had it. He gave it to Chana. Chana gave it to Metushelach. Metushelach gave it to Noach. Noach gave it to Shem, just so you know, it was handed down, mamish like the torch of the Olympics, right? Handed one to the next, and then Noach went to Shem. Shem went to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and that's what it says in the Pasuk. Ki b'makli avarti et Yarden is referring to this thing, referring to this mateh. That's the mateh that Yaakov Avinu had. That's how he was passed over the river. He kind of flew over the river with his mateh. Umasroi le Yosef, and he went ahead and gave it over to Yosef. And Yosef was the one who had it in Mitzrayim, and in Mitzrayim from the time that Yaakov Avinu appeared until Yosef died. It also brings over there that Yehuda had it, the mateh that he gave to Tamar, the Zona, HaMateh Asher B'Yadcha, that mateh was the same mateh until Yaakov Avinu saw Yosef in Mitzrayim. Yehuda had it. Yehuda had it for a while, and that's the mateh which he gave over, and he put everybody in peril, because if she was a real Zona, he mamish put himself in danger. If he never got that mateh back, oh boy, it's scary to think what would have happened. Anyways, so Yosef was given it, and then, listen to this one, as the Pirkei Rav continues, what did Yosef do after he died? It was left in the castle. It was left by the Armon of Paro. It was left there, it's in the Machsan. It was sitting in the Machsan, this incredible edifice was sitting there. And what happened? Yitro, we know Yitro was one of the workers he was one of the Komarim for Paro. He was one of Paro's Komarim. He was one of his things. He was one of the Khartoumim. He knew all of black magic. And he saw the name of Hashem and the Mateh, and he, this is fancy schmancy. He wanted this, and then he was called to B'tshuva. He ran away to Midian. As we all know, Yitro went away, but he had the Mateh with him. So Yitro had the Mateh in his possession. What did he do with this thing? So as the Midrash says over there, as Pirkei Rav Elazar brings, he put it in his backyard, planted it in the ground, boom, tachavota inside the ground, and he said, whoever can pull this off gets my daughter Tzipora for a bride. They always do this. And no one ever asks Tzipora the question, right? Tzipora, you want to get married with this guy? You know, some ugly guy. Tati said, I get married. No questions asked. And all the you know, as it goes, all the big giborim, all the big strong guys came, guys with big flexing muscles came, after working out, Gold's Gym, they come out pulling, trying, pull, tug, pull, nothing, nobody can get it out. Nobody was able, big kings came, they hired everybody to try to be able to, nobody was able to pull it out of the ground, until of course, Moshe Rabbeinu comes down, and he sees the Shem Hashem over there, and he adds over there what happened. He saw the otiyot on it. What did he do? He went and he read the otiyot that were on it. He used the Shem Hashem, which we knew Moshe Rabbeinu was familiar with. He killed the Mitzri with the same letters. He was able to do it. He read the letters. He went out and he pulled it out with ease. Just like you pull out a plant, he was able to pull it out of the things. And he got Tzipora for his wife. And that's how he got Tzipora for his wife, by pulling it out of the ground. That's what happened. And Yitro said when he gave him Tzipora, Zeh otid l'gol Yisrael. If this person is very special, and he's going to end up being the Gol Yisrael. This is what's written in the Pirkei Rav Elazar. It's also brought in the Targum Yonis, and you should know the same idea, so we know it's definitely true. I mean, we know it's true anyways. I'm just saying that you have a lot of backup over here to the way the Midrash is. And this is the famous mateh, which was in the hands of all these great people. There's the same mateh that Aaron used by Korach, which opened up into flowers. And as the Mefarshim say, this will be the same mateh which David had, and then from David it will be given over to Mashiach. The pasuk says, "Mateh uzecha yishlach Hashem mitzion." The Mashiach will come with a mateh, and it will be the same mateh. Okay, that's the incredible power of this mateh, which even Moshe Rabbeinu didn't realize its koach until the Kadosh Baruch Hu told him, "Kach et mateh aser b'yadcha," and take it in your hand, and you should use it. Only then he realized its incredible koach to be able to do what he can do. Seder, that's the yesod based on the Mefarshim which we mentioned. Okay, where did it go after Moshe Rabbeinu died? So the Abarbanel, as a big chiddush in Parshas B'Shalach, he actually says that we find that there's the tzluchis of the man was nignas, and we find the shemen and mishcha was nignas, the shemen that was used in the base of Midrash. We don't find whatever happened to the mateh. Pitom, it just disappears. What happened to the magical mateh? Just disappears. So the Abarbanel is a massive chiddush. He says that it was buried with Moshe Rabbeinu. It's a nigvarim mod. Now, where's Moshe Rabbeinu buried? No, we don't know. Where's the mateh buried? We don't know. But the same place where he is, that's where it's located. So it's there. Because he says nobody else is permitted to use this mateh. Lo yikam navi k'Moshe, and also lo yikam to use the same mateh which was permitted. He says even Yeshua was not like that. It's not mashma like that in the Yalkut Shimoni and Parshas Chukot and other places which says that la'oti lavoy, like I mentioned to you before, this mateh will be given to Mashiach, even if you want to say it's buried, but other people are allowed to use it, because it does say that it sounds like it was given eventually to Mashiach, and it actually says just like it was used to get rid of Mitzrayim, it will also be used to get rid of, I'll say Hamas, or to get rid of Gog and Magog, or to get rid of all the bad people that are around us. Uncle Panim, that's that. Now the first ot which was used with this mateh, what was the first ot that he used? Of course we know that turned into a nachash. And it actually brings in the midrash that they laughed at Moshe Rabbeinu. He says, you got to be kidding, we're swimming here in Kishuf. Even when Moshe Rabbeinu walked into the castle, there were animals on the sides, and nobody ever dared to walk into Paro's castle except for Moshe Rabbeinu, because the lions licked his toes, because they were lions of Kishuf. They weren't real lions, other people got devoured by them. But, so he says there were people at Kishuf, it wasn't a very powerful thing, but he was coming to tell him a big remez. He turned it back into a mateh, and he swallowed up all the other matot which the machshefot did. He says, based on the Haftorah, what does it say in the Haftorah? Ko amar Hashem hineni alecha paro melech Mitzrayim. Hatanina gadol, paro is referred to as a snake. He's a snake, he's known as the Tanina gadol, rovetz betoch yorav, because he's the one who says, I'm God. He didn't believe in Hashem, or he believed in him, but he said, I still created myself. He had a certain aspect of the snake. Which snake? Of course, when we say the snake, we think of Nachash HaKadmoni. So referring to the Nachash HaKadmoni, he says, I created myself just like the Nachash was Koifer. In the HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, Hashem created himself, and Kebiyochel Hashem, also this tree, you can overpower Hashem. So Paro had a similarity to the snake, which is during the time of Eitz Hadat, and the mateh came from Eitz Hadat. When Adam Rishon got the mateh, he got it out of Eitz Hadat, he got it from Gan Eden in the Eitz Hadat. And since he was able to pull out, I'm sorry, not the Eitz Hadat, the Eitz HaChaim, by the way. And since he was able to pull out the Eitz in the time of the Nachash, which is the same thing, so that was the remez that he was coming to say to Paro, and that's why Paro got scared. When he realized, you should know, this mateh comes from Eitz Hadat, there's no Kishuf here, and we're going to take over here. We're not going to let your fakeness, because that's why I'm coming to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He said, Mize Elokim, Paro said, denied the fact that existence of Elokim, and the mateh came and said, you're acting like the Nachash, and watch, you're going to see where I'm coming from. That's the idea of the mateh, that's the background. I want to give now the last part, which is the Musar part, which we learned from this incredible mateh, which we see as a tremendous amount of background, and this is based on the Drashot Aran, an absolutely incredible sefer. Anyone get your hold on the sefer? I don't know if they translate it into English yet, but you should know it's an incredible sefer. And Drush Shemini, on the 8th Drush over there, he brings up in the middle of the Drush there, he mentions the mateh. It's not on the whole entire Drush, but he brings an incredible idea about this mateh. He says that whenever Moshe Rabbeinu went anywhere, he always took the mateh with him. Now we saw many places where he used the mateh. You hit the Nile, you hit the ground, etc. There's sometimes you actually like to use the mateh, no problem. He had to go ahead and do an action. But we find places where he just did an action, he wanted the miracle to be just the mateh to be there. I just want Poshet the mateh to be there. Didn't ask for doing that. Even when he splits the sea, he just picks up his hands. Happens to be the mateh's in his hand, but he doesn't do anything with the mateh per se. Many times we see like that. And the main example where he's coming from is Mei Meriva. We know when it came to the hitting of the rock, in order to get the water out, later on in Parshat Chukot, over there, he wants to get water out of the rock. So he made a mistake because the HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him, take the mateh in your hand, and I want you to bring water out of the rock. He thought it meant bam on the rock and get out some water. And obviously we know that was the one sin that Moshe Rabbeinu did, according to his level. But really, Hashem did not want him to hit the rock. So why am I taking this mateh with him? The Ramban writes over there, what was the purpose of taking the mateh with you in the first place, if it wasn't necessarily for it to be done in the first place? What was the purpose of the mateh to be there? So says the Ran, an incredible yisod. He says sometimes when you have a shefa eloki based on something, it itself has a certain shefa, it itself has a certain kedusha to it. It spills over, it spills the dudosav, it spills over the sides, and it influences the surroundings around it. Sometimes just having it there, you don't need to use it, but since it itself has a certain kedusha to it, that does the nes. Just being in the presence of the mateh, that itself was the way that the nes should actually go ahead and take place. That's the way that it should actually happen, and that will make a big change to do it. Okay, and that's the power of the mateh that happened, even without actually hitting the rock. Just the fact that it should be in his presence, that itself should have the power to be able to do it. Okay, that's the yisod that he says, and here the Ran builds from this a massive yisod, which I think is so important for everyone to know. And it's really, in my opinion, one of the fundamentals of everything that we should remember. And he says from here we see an important idea. That sometimes when you have something with a shefa eloki, a certain kedusha, a certain greatness, a certain fantastic thing, just to be in its present, that itself makes you bigger. It's just worth it living in the area, being next to it. Eini dar el b'makom Torah. I want to be in a place of Torah because even if I don't learn Torah, but at least I feel it, I smell it, it's in the air. If you live in a place of Tuma, that's where you're going to get. You are influenced by your surroundings, obviously, but even more than that, in a more Kabbalistic way. He says that when things have a certain kedusha to them, it spills over to you and you actually grow from it, you actually gain from it. Not just because you learn from it, like I'm saying society. I'm saying more than that, it actually spills over to other places. Listen to his examples. Incredible 3 examples of this, I'm going to finish. He says the first example, of course, we know by Aaron and Miriam. They sinned when they spoke about Moshe Rabbeinu. And a very funny thing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him, Moshe Rabbeinu, I want you to go there. And after that, he gives tochacha, he gives rebuke to Miriam and Aaron. Why does Moshe Rabbeinu have to do that? He didn't even speak to Moshe Rabbeinu the whole time. When he was there, he didn't speak at all to Moshe Rabbeinu. Why did Moshe Rabbeinu have to stand there just to embarrass them? It didn't seem befitting. The Ramban asked the question. Also over there, he asked a similar question. Says the Ran, because they didn't deserve to have a nevuah at that stage, and for sure this kind of nevuah. As we all know, Rashi writes over there, they were tamei. They were getting whatever. They were getting a crazy nevuah. They were getting a nevuah which is off the books. A nevuah which was not befitting for them. So they needed the koach of Moshe Rabbeinu to just be there. Not that he got nevuah, and not that through him they got nevuah. Just his presence, they were able to receive a nevuah, which at that time they did not deserve. Absolutely incredible. They were able to read it just by being in the presence of a Moshe Rabbeinu. That is the first thing that he says, and that goes back to the same yesod that we see being in the presence of a Mokum Kedusha, of a person of Kedusha. That itself gives you presence. That itself gives you that Kedusha automatically. He says the second example is we know by the 70 Zakanim, when they were turned into Nevim, that it was done at Salti Miruchacha Alecha, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu, I want you to go over there, and I want you to go ahead and influence them, and also and be in the area. I will go and spill over from the ruach which is by them, and it will automatically go to them. Meaning, just by them being in your presence, they got a certain nevuah, and that's why Yeshua was very upset because Eldad and Medad were not in the area, and they're still doing nevuah. He says, you can't break the rules. You're only allowed to get this in the influence of Moshe Rabbeinu. It was a real nevuah only came by just Moshe Rabbeinu's presence being in the area. An incredible thing to us to make us realize. And from here we see an incredible musar that when in Baruch Hashem we have Torah any time, and we have all these ideas of going and being next to a Rav and being able to hear many shurim, and they're utilized, and it's very good and beneficial. And here I am speaking to a camera because we know we get a tremendous amount out of it. However, when people use that as a replacement from a Rav, as something that I've mentioned many times, we have a clear Ran that says that if a person uses it instead of a Rav, he's mamish breaking the rules. It's asur gomer. You cannot do that. The real kedusha, the influence, and the aliyah that a person gets doesn't come through a camera. It doesn't come through a screen. It comes from being close to the kedusha. As we know, the Gemara says that Rabbeinu HaKadosh said that the reason why I was on the level that I got to is because I was able to see Reb Meir even from the back. If I was able to see him in the back of me on such a level, then Kal V'Chomer, by being in the front, I'm able to get to such a level. That's the incredible lesson that we're learning based on the lesson that the Ran is telling us. Just like he says in the base of Migdash, we know that there's a Shefa Eloki there, and by having that Shefa Eloki and by being next to it, we all know that there's a Metzias of Nevuah, and a person's able to get there. So too, this is the same idea. And he says that's why there's an idea in Judaism as you read it to Dorot. Why is it that every generation we have less Chokhmah and we have less Nevuah? What's wrong with us? Why are we getting worse with scientific knowledge and technology goes up, and we're going down? What's the problem? Why are we so negative? The answer is because we come from one source, the source of Moshe Rabbeinu. He's the source of Chokhmah. He's our Rebbe, and he's also our source of Nevuah. He's the highest of everything. The farther every generation that goes one more distance from there is Nocha Yerida. It's more distance. It's less of that Kedusha, less of being connected to that spilling over of that Kedusha of this man that we are introduced to in our Parsha, in Parsha Shemot over here. That the farther we move away from him, the less Kedusha that we have, and that's why we don't have any Nevuah anymore, because we're just too far, we're too distanced away from there. And our Chokhmah is not on the levels as it was in the time of the Amoraim, in the time of the Tanaim, before. That's the way that it is, and therefore, the more that we are connected, we're able to connect to the past, to our Rabbanim, to connect to influence that we're supposed to get there, then you should know that's where you get to. When people use a replacement, it's an isser. It's not beseder. You're using as a replacement, you're going to a second step, and you're not able to gain the levels that you're supposed to do. He says use the olul to the ila. That's the way it's supposed to be. We know that the Gemara in Shabbat says that if the Rishonim are kibnei malachim, then we're kibnei enosh. If they're like a malach, then we're people. And if they're people, we're chamorim. We're the next level afterwards. And if you're not even going to be connected to be a chamor, you're going to be worse than a chamor. I don't want to say what's going to happen after that. You have to at least connect to the level that you can be able to do. And this is the yisod that I wanted to bring out here based on the yisod of the Ran. And this is based on the idea that the spilling over of Kedusha only comes when we're in the influence of something special, of a place of Kedusha. And yes, we go, and the Ran actually says this, when this I finish basically, that not only b'chayim, but even in mitatam. Even after their death, there's something special to go to a kever, to the kever of tzaddikim. He says that's what the Gemara in Ta'anit, and the Gemara says that we're mishtateach al kivreim shel tzaddikim. We go and mishtateach on their kever. You know why? Because they are still giving over that influence. The Kedusha is still there and it's still influence. But yes, going to a kever is good, but you know what? Going to a live person is even better. Go get a little bit of incense. Go hear the shir in person. Go ask him a shayla. Have a little bit of that aura that we can have, that auspicy, that Kedusha that can spill over, because we see the mata, just the mateh, just being in the area, that itself gave a tremendous amount of Kedusha. Shabbat Shalom.